Okay, in this video, we're going to be doing a little bit of prep work for factoring trinomials. So this is what's known as a factor X, and you may have seen some other version of this. But what we're looking for on this number up top is always going to be our product, and this number at the bottom is always going to be our sum. So notice this one's already filled out. We have the 5 and the 6. But if we take the product of 5 times 6, that gives us back 30, which is our top number. And if we take the sum of 5 and 6, we get 11. So let's just say, for example, for the next one, we have the numbers in the middle. So we want the top number to be the product of 8 times negative 6. So that would be negative 48. And we want the bottom to be the sum of 8 plus negative 6. So remember, the signs are different, so we actually subtract and keep the sign on the 8, and that would be a positive 2. So for the last one on the first row, we have AB as our product and A plus B as our sum, so we can tell our two numbers would need to be A and B. Now when you're looking at the numbers on the left and the right, the order doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter if you put the A on the left or if you put the B on the left. All right, so let's try a couple of these. So we want our product to be 6. And I usually start here and I think about what products of whole numbers give me 6. My two choices are 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. But then I want the sum to be 5. Now another thing I'm noticing is that my 6 is positive, which means those signs are the same. So if I put a 2 and a 3 in here, then a positive 2 times a positive 3 would give me a positive 6. And a 2 plus 3 would give me a positive 5. So I know I did that correctly. And again, it doesn't matter what order you put the 2 and the 3 in. So let's try 36. 36 is a little bit harder. So I want numbers that multiply to make 36. I have 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9. Now 5 doesn't work because 5 doesn't go evenly into 36, but I could go 6 times 6. Once your numbers meet, then you know you're done. Now notice I want them to add to be a negative 12. So I know that 6 and 6 add to be 12. But if I make them both negative, then negative 6 plus negative 6 gives me negative 12. And then the product of negative 6 times negative 6 gives me positive 36. So keep in mind when you're doing your product, it can only be a positive product if the signs are the same. All right, so if we try this one, I don't have a lot of room for my factors of 12. I'll put them over here. I need products that come out to be 12. So I can do 1 times 12, 2 times 6, or 3 times 4. Now I want them to add to be negative 8 in some way. So I'm looking at 2 and 6. Those add to be 8. If I make them both negative, then they do add to be negative 8. And they do multiply to be positive 12. So I know I got the right numbers. All right, so we can use our factors of 12 again on this next problem. So let me zoom it out just a little bit. This time I want my numbers to add to be 7. So this time I'm going to use the 3 and the 4. And this time they're going to both be positive, right? Because that'll add to be 7. And it'll still multiply to be 12. So when everything's positive in your X, then that makes it a little bit easier. Now the next two are a little bit harder. I want numbers that multiply to be negative 6. Well, let's just start with factors of 6. I can do 1 times 6, 2 times 3. But when I see that negative, right there on the 6, what I know is that my signs are different. So when I fill in my numbers on the left and the right, one of them needs to be positive and one of them needs to be negative. So if I try to use the 2 and the 3 like I did on the problem above, the only way to make that a negative 6 is to make one of those negatives. But if I make the 2 negative, now they add to be 1. So that doesn't work. So if I make the 3 negative, then 2 plus negative 3 equals negative 1. So that doesn't work either. So that means instead of the 2 and the 3, I'm going to try the 1 and the 6. Okay, let me erase all this. All right, so if I want to make my 5 negative, I need the bigger number to be negative. That way 1 plus negative 6 equals negative 5. And then 1 times negative 6 gives me negative 6. So that works out. I know I got the right numbers. All right, now this one's a little different. They gave us the left and right. So the top should be the product, which will be negative 42. The bottom should be the sum, which is negative 1. Usually you're going the other direction on these. All right, so let's try the back or the next page. Okay, this looks a little harder. I want numbers that multiply to make 100 and add in some way to be 52. So if I start with 100, 1 times 100, and then my next pair would be 2 times 50. Now there's more products that make 100, but notice I got a 2 and a 50, which would give me a sum of 52. Now that would only work if I made them both negative. So let's check that. Negative 2 plus negative 50 gives me negative 52. And then negative 2 times negative 50 gives me positive 100. So that does check out. Now this one's interesting. It's got some letters in here. So let's start with a 9. I can do 1 times 9 or 3 times 3. If I want to add them to be 6, though, it would have to be 3 and 3. But I do have a y in there. So let's try sticking a y on the end of each of these. That way when I add them, they're similar, so I can put them together and get 6y. But when I multiply them, I have to use my exponent rules, and I would get 9y squared. All right, so this one is interesting. I want the product to be negative 64, but I want the sum to be 0. And what that actually tells me is I want opposites. Okay, so I'm thinking about the same number but with opposite signs. So for 64, I would need a negative 8 and a positive 8. They would add to be 0, but they would still multiply to be negative 64. All right, so notice we have the same thing down here. So this would be negative 11 and positive 11. So the numbers would have to be opposites in this case. All right, now here I want numbers that multiply to make 81. I don't know all my factors of 81, but the one I know best is 9 times 9. Hang on just a second, let me pause this.